every single day. Why do you think the price is having such an anemic time? The news story of the hour. Jump onto the chart. Is this the beginning of a massive financial unraveling? We gotta add a little addendum to the show map today, so we start here on the daily. Now, we've been looking at the RSI on Bitcoin's daily chart for the last several days. It always has been, but it's been increasing over the last 50 years since we've been out there. The government has been bigger.
Hey guys, what's going on? Jebb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto. This is your week's daily morning show where we bring you the latest Bitcoin and cryptocurrency technical, on-chain, and fundamental analysis. And today, this is some of the biggest news that Bitcoin has had in months. SEC Chairman Gary Gensler went on Squawk Box yesterday, and it came out and said that there is no inkling in his entire big old brain that Bitcoin is anything other than a commodity. But he was interestingly silent on all of the altcoins. Could we be seeing regulation set up in a way that is very beneficial to Bitcoin as it would be regulated as a commodity, with some even arguing that it should be regulated as cash, whereas the altcoins could be left high and dry, having to follow regulatory guidelines built around securities. We're also going to talk about how Voyager Digital has issued Three Arrows Capital with a default notice to the tune of $676 million worth of loans. Robinhood's shares have dropped 14% on a report that FTX may be exploring a deal, and Miner Revenue tells us a little bit about why Bitcoin might be very close to bottoming out in a similar way that it bottomed out in June of last year before having a meteoric bull market of 5 months all the way up to $69,000. We're going to talk about all of that and more in today's episode of Coffee and Crypto Live. So if you do enjoy, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and follow us on all of our social media. But I am joined today by T.A. Tim. How you doing, Tim?
What is up, everyone? I am here. I got my drink. You know, last week that was a problem for me. I had a show without it, and it was the worst show of my life. But I am here. As you guys know, I had jury duty yesterday, and I'm not going to go into details, but unfortunately I'll be gone tomorrow. And so those of you who know what that means, know what that means. But I'm not supposed to talk about any details, so I will not.
There you go. No details. Top secret, classified. He's like, join the CIA or something. I'm joking. That's not the case. Or is it? It's all under wraps. We're also joined as always by Smay. How you doing, Smay?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing very good. And I would like to, in the honor of me feeling really good right now, I would like to read some green names. So we have Crypto Alchemist, Grand Roofing Incorporated, Mitch Shaw, Crypto Sec Guy, Kelly Kellum, Crypto Alchemist, Crypto JMP, Agent Gold, Cyberfix Online, SEO by Bradley Kellum. We have Tom Crown in the chat. Shout out to Tom Crown.
Yeah. What up, Tom?
We got to hang out with him at Bitcoin 2022.
We did.
He is a cool guy. He is a very cool guy.
Greetings,
Sultan of Salt, Crypto Alchemist, Siobhan Golay, Win Peoples. Who else we got here? Kashi Cats.
Whoa.
Philly Fan 61.
Whoa.
Or as Tim likes to say, Philippians. Win Peoples, Grand Roofing Incorporated. I might have said that name already. I love all of you guys. And boom. All right, back to you, Jebb.
Boom sauce. Thank you very much, Smay. I do very much appreciate it. Guys, we got a great show lined up for you today, and we also have a great guest that we will be introducing here in a little while. But first, we need to jump into our market pulse. So let's go ahead and do it. As you can see, Voyager Digital issues Three Arrows Capital with a default notice. 3AC has yet to repay its debt to Voyager Digital. Now the latter has issued a default notice as part of its attempts to recover the loan. Voyager Digital is making good on its promise to chase down crypto hedge fund Three Arrows Capital for owed money. The crypto broker is reported to have lent 3AC $350 million in the stablecoin USDC and 15,250 Bitcoin, totaling over $673 million at today's prices. On June 22nd, Voyager claimed it had requested a partial $25 million USDC repayment by June 24th. It added that it sought full repayment by today, again to the tune of $670 million. It appears neither of these requests have been made, leading to this afternoon's default notice and strengthening claims that 3AC is insolvent. If you don't know what insolvent means, it basically means that there is not enough cash in the books to cover all of the liabilities, so it would mean that the company is on track for bankruptcy. A default default notice is a formal response issued by a lender whenever a borrower has missed payments on their loan. Such a note doesn't ensure the lender will be made whole, but it does mean they could soon collect the initial collateral. This would be a really, really big deal for cryptocurrency because 3AC is a massive player in the crypto space. And if you do see them go under, then that really just adds to the whole argument that we're seeing right now of a multitude of different cryptocurrency companies going under as they are starting to lose their ability, as it says here, to remain solvent. So we definitely want to make sure that we are keeping a close eye on all of these things. This will even tie back into how we talked about how amid the chaos, crypto exchange FTX and trading firm Alameda Research have stepped in to supply bailouts to the affected firms. We talked about this last week on the show. The exchange is expected to acquire a $250 million stake in BlockFi, and Alameda has already issued Voyager a revolving line of credit to stay afloat. So different crypto companies are issuing bailouts to other crypto companies trying to keep everything afloat. All of these stories go a lot deeper with the connections between all of these companies. They all know each other. They're all working very closely together. So we're just kind of read the headline on that. It's something to keep in mind that we could be seeing defaults in major cryptocurrency enterprises here in the next couple of months as the price and as the interest in crypto continues to decline. Robinhood shares jumped 14% on report FTX may be exploring a deal. This is a big one. As you guys know, FTX is a multi-billion-dollar exchange. It's an absolutely gigantic exchange. So too is Robinhood. Robinhood shares jumped on Monday after Bloomberg News reported crypto exchange FTX was considering acquiring the trading app. Think about how crazy that is. Robinhood is a stock trading platform. FTX is a cryptocurrency platform. FTX is considering acquiring Robinhood, not the other way around. FTX is considering acquiring Robinhood. The stock soared 14% to its session high and was briefly halted after a report that FTX was discussing a takeover plan internally, but no offer has been made to Robinhood, Bloomberg News reported, citing people familiar with the matter, i.e. anonymous sources. We are excited about Robinhood's business prospects and potential ways we could partner with them, and I've always been impressed by the business that Vlad and his team have built, Sam Bankman-Fried said. That being said, there are no active M&A conversations with Robinhood. That would be merge and acquisition conversations with Robinhood. Robinhood declined to comment. So what's going on behind the scenes there? Well, time will probably tell on that. But we could see FTX buying Robinhood, which would make FTX one of the leaders in mobile cryptocurrency exchanges. So definitely want to be keeping an eye on that. Any of you who hold Robinhood stock or hold stocks on Robinhood should be paying very close attention to this update.
I think T. Shroom does a lot of trading on Robinhood.
I think he does.
That's where he got into the space.
I think he does. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
So, and he's the one that showed us this article, so he's probably keeping a very close eye on that as well. Now, we also have one more story to jump into here that's going to lead us into our technical analysis, and then we will introduce our illustrious guest here in just a minute. Bitcoin mining revenue mirrors 2021 lows right before BTC breached $69,000. The key to survival for Bitcoin miners boils down to the delicate balance between the revenue and the operating cash flow. Bitcoin visiting the $20,000 range after 1.5 years made mining, the most important job in the ecosystem, a costly affair. However, if history were to repeat itself, BTC investors may witness another epic bull run that previously helped Bitcoin reach an all-time high of $69,000. Changes in Bitcoin's price directly impact the miners' income, who earn fixed block rewards and transaction fees in Bitcoin for running their mining operations. In June 2022, the total mining revenue dropped below the $20 million range, with blockchain.com data recording the lowest dip to $14,401,000 on June 17th, as you can see right here. As shown above, the recent dip in Bitcoin mining revenue was seen over 1 year back when the total value tanked to $13 million on June 27, 2021. If we go into our chart here, I can go ahead and switch back over to Bitcoin, and I'll show you what June 27th represented on the price action of Bitcoin. Hint, hint, we are in a very similar position that we are in right now. June 27th was right here, and this was, as you can see, virtually the bottom of the market, and we would go into a major rally from there as a result of this drop. Now, if you'll notice, we haven't even dropped as low as we did back then at this point, because there's still so much there's still so many transactions going on the blockchain that fees are still somewhat higher than they may have been back here. So we're looking at $13 million in daily revenue right here. Now we're looking at $14 million. We're not even as low as we were in June, but the price action is a full, $10,000 to $11,000 lower than it was back in June of last year, indicating that a bottom is coming in, and that a bottom is coming in very, very soon, based on this data. Now, one thing to also keep in mind here is that these public miners hold a massive, massive important job in cryptocurrency. Their job is to continue mining Bitcoin. And as we've talked about, Bitcoin is like the interstate highway system. It is a system that maintains traffic and the flow of monetary value. So maintaining Bitcoin is like the construction crews on the interstate, where they're always, nonstop, always fixing the interstate. There's always work going on to either expand it, which is mostly stopped at this point, or to keep it repaired and updated. That's what the miners are doing. They are maintaining the system. They're maintaining the system, and it's very important that they are able to make that profitable so that they keep maintaining the system, or the system will start to degrade. And so that's what we're seeing here with a multitude of different public miners. You can see Core, Riot, Marathon, Hut 8, Bitfarm, Stronghold, CleanSpark, and Argo. These numbers are in the millions of dollars, and I do believe this is talking about daily. This might be monthly. You can see Argo, CleanSpark, Stronghold, and Marathon are in some of the best positions. You have another company like Core over here, which is very large, but they seem to have much more overhead, so these two numbers are about the same. You need to be careful about that. So we even see that some of these facilities, such as Compass Mining, had an agreement in Maine that was just terminated for failure to pay power consumption charges, 6 late payments and 3 non-payments right over here at Mining Scandal. So there's a lot going on in the mining ecosystem right now. A lot of it isn't the best. A lot of these miners are hunkering down for winter and trying to figure out how to lower their expenses so that they will continue to remain profitable. A lot of these miners are doing this by selling off stock in their companies so that they're able to mine at a deficit, hold Bitcoin that they mined unprofitably at current market value, sell off stock in their company to maintain overhead so that they're able to keep going through the bear market. And then they know if they mine Bitcoin just below profit margin at $20,000 and it goes to 100, then they'll make 400% on their mining, so long as they take that revenue not today, but in 2 to 3 years. That's what's going on with a lot of these miners. The only issue is that can't go on forever, because eventually the miners will start running out of stock to sell, and they will eventually become insolvent. So hopefully that doesn't occur. Hopefully the bull market comes back in the next year or so, and that will be that. But now we are going to go ahead and jump into our technical analysis segment, and we have a very special guest today. He goes by a couple of names. Magic Internet Money is his name on Twitter and on YouTube, but he also goes by Kagan. So Kagan, welcome to the show, my friend.
Happy to be here, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so very much for joining us, and tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background here in the cryptocurrency space, and just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and maybe where we can find you also.
Cool. So I've been a trader in crypto since 2019. Got into it in 2017, like a lot of people. Didn't really make content until 2019, actually. And I watched shows like yours. So I've been watching you for years.
Oh, thank you.
Big fan of it. And it's one of those things where I got into content because I noticed that there was not like a glaring lack, but there was a lack of, actual trading information that was being spread throughout the space. And so started doing that, worked up some educational programs with actually other creators in the past, and then eventually just did my own thing. So yeah, just been trading the market away from bear market to bull market, back to bear market.
Good for you, man. 2019 seems like so long ago. It was only 3 years ago, but so much has happened since 2019. Bitcoin was, for everybody here who has not been in the space as long as Kagan, 2019 Bitcoin was trading at a low at $3,800, and now we're, a lot of people we're tempted to complain about a $21,000 Bitcoin and it being super low. But Kagan, let's talk about that a little bit, because if you've been in the space for a multitude of years now, so you've seen the ups and downs. You saw Bitcoin run to 13.7, then drop down to 3,900, then up to 65, down to 30, up to 69, down to where we are now. Let me ask you this, because this is the question kind of on everyone's mind. Where do you see the bottom right now? I know that's kind of the biggest question in crypto right now, and it seems like everybody has a stance on it. We bottomed out at 17.5 so far. Was that the bottom? Are we going to see Bitcoin go lower? And what forces might drive us down to those levels?
So I don't necessarily think that is the absolute bottom yet. I did think that would be a local bottom between, I think for me, timing was the most important thing. June 20th, that week, up to the 27th, I was looking for a local bottoming price, all the way out to about July 14th, which is a really macro date for me coming in. So do I think it's a local bottom? Yes. Could it turn into a macro bottom? Absolutely. Anything can happen. Nobody knows the future. But do I think that sell pressure has subsided to the point where we could say that this sell-off is over? Probably not. Looking at the Federal Reserve, you can see how they're front-loading rates this year. Yep. So it's going to be pretty aggressive for 2022. 2023, probably not as much, but going into 24, you may actually see that subside and maybe even give a little bit back to kind of hopefully prevent some of those, really drastic measures, I guess, or repercussions from raising rates very quickly. So I think it could be a long, drawn out process. And if we are to go lower, though, timeline for that for me isn't necessarily like a capitulation event from where we are now through the end of July or anything. I think it would actually get pushed out to like November of this year, early Q1 of next year, if we were going to see like further downside to like 10 to 12K. That would be the timeline if we were to see those really like doomsday targets for me, is because I think the market's largely pricing in a lot of things right now. As long as the Fed doesn't do anything that they haven't kind of alluded to, like they alluded to that they're not going to do another 75 basis point hike a little bit in his speech.
Yeah.
But if that were to happen again, it would be a little unexpected. I think everyone's expecting another 50 point going forward. And if they didn't raise rates, that would be even more unexpected, in my opinion. I think people then the bull market might actually come back on, or at least you might see a miniature bull market like we did in 2019, where we came up to like 13, 14K.
Yeah.
Was it an all-time high? No, but it was a pretty good move. It was like a 3 or 4x off the lows, if I recall. So
yeah.
That's kind of what I'm looking for. Just kind of trading at level to level at the moment. The range is pretty big right now, and you're really kind of right in the middle of it. And it's one of those things where not a great place to be looking for positions, but when you get expansions like we just had, the range is going to be pretty big at the beginning, and it'll slowly narrow. And a lot of people will start seeing patterns form, like whether it's a giant triangle or, a falling wedge, whatever it is, and it'll get more narrow and more narrow. And the ranges volume wise and standard deviation wise will just get smaller and smaller. The returns will be less when you're trading the range, but the moves are a little more expected. And so, you have to take that in because there's less risk involved.
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you this, but on the topic of the interest rates, the federal funds rate, what impact do you think the interest rates stopping being, eventually they're going to plateau? They might plateau at 3%, 4%, 5%, 6%, 7%, wherever. Eventually they're going to plateau. I would probably put that sometime later on the end of this year, maybe the beginning of next year. It sounds like you might put that a little bit later, but regardless of the time, what impact do you think that plateau would have? And then if they start dropping interest rates, because obviously the Federal Reserve is trying to fight inflation right now, but at some point in the future, they're going to be probably wanting to drop interest rates for the sake of fighting a recession. Are they going to drop interest rates in such a major way that it could lead to a big bull market in Bitcoin? And would that kind of give us maybe the catalytic event that we need to kick off the next bull market? And if you don't think that's the thing that would kick off the next bull market, what do you think it would be?
I really do think that has an impact. So if they did something where they dropped them pretty drastically, I think it would bring some buyers back into the market. I don't think that would necessarily be a good thing long term. I do think that you maybe want to at least do some type of raising of the rates to kind of ease on what's going on right now. But if they were to drop them, I mean, you would see investors come back first into the traditional markets, and you'd see that money flow into Bitcoin. As far as Bitcoin decoupling from traditional markets, that's something we all kind of dream of.
Absolutely.
And maybe we get that through mass adoption. I think that's really the only way you'll ever get that. And it's a long-term view at that point. You're really looking well out into the future, and none of us have a crystal ball. At that point, we're speculating to the highest degree. So for me, I'm just taking it one step at a time. I do think interest rates will be the deciding factor. And then obviously, everyone's looking towards next halving and the upcoming supply shock for Bitcoin, because that is a big deal as well. So, those are just the factors. Action kind of trumps everything. So for me, unless Bitcoin's living back above $32,000, 32.9K specifically, I'm not really in any position to say that this is any more than just a failed rally. Just because that 32.9 level at the lows there really is the bottom of that giant range we just put in, because we lived there for 18 months. That's going to be a huge resistance that one can't just expect Bitcoin to work its way through like it's butter. It's going to take time, in my opinion.
Right. Absolutely. Well, let me ask you this, because first of all, tell us a little bit more about that 32.9K level. What is it going to look like when we do eventually go into a bull market? Because like you said, we ranged up there for a very long time. You can even see on the VPVR that there is a ton of resistance up in that region between 30 and 60K. What is it going to look like when we do go into a bull market? Eventually we're going to more than likely do that.
I've tracked every range in Bitcoin since 2019. I still have the same TradingView account and the same folders. So it's a little bit of OCD on it, but 32.9K is a really big level for other reasons as well. There's a closing of a single print there. And so what a single print is, this is going to be an area where price moves very quickly through a zone. It's something that you can see in the order flow. And what that is going to tell you is that once price has found acceptance back into it, price will move quickly through that area because there's no resistance there. Think of it as the last place that a buyer or seller capitulated, and there's no more resistance, and now it's just mark down or mark up at a very high rate. So once you're above 32.9K, you are back within a pretty large range that basically spans up to $39,000. So that would be the next area I'd be looking to, is probably like 39 to 40K at that point. So I think it would be a really quick 20% move through that range. And I think that if you didn't get the rejection off 32.9K, I wouldn't fight it. But at the same time, like once you get up to 39, 40K, it's going to be much like when we came down on January 24th and we bounced all the way back up to that, $38,000, $39,000 level. That was actually the back test of the range highs of the 2021 June, July lows. It was to the dollar. Came in on a perfect fib time date. It was really nice. From there, that was actually a Fed meeting. And if you were watching, the Fed meeting didn't say anything bearish, actually. Everyone had already kind of priced in what they were going to say. But it turned into a massive bull trap, at least at the highs there for a little bit, because people got really aggressive into resistance. And anytime you have that, it does open up the opportunity for a market maker or several of them to open big positions to the downside and punish those people that are late to the move, because rarely are they rewarded. So I think that's going to be a fun range if we get there. For now, I think the top of our current range does come in somewhere between, I would say, $23,000 and $24,000 to the upside. I have a pivot of 23,282.50 to the upside still. And then to the downside, you are still looking potentially all the way down as low as 17,147. Realistically, 18,246 and 19,228 are going to be great barometers for that type of thing. But you're dead set in the middle of it right now. So trades are really best kept short in terms of holding time, unless you've already longed from the lows or you're short from the highs. So it is one of those where, it's an interesting time in crypto. This has been a fun one. It's been a while since we've had new price action. And if you look, we haven't put a lot of volume in this area, and a lot of people talk about that.
Let's jump on the charts real quick. If we
that's why I was
do we have it so we can share your screen?
Go for it, Tim.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Full screen.
Let me get that up for you.
By the way, while he's getting that pulled up, I got to be on a show with Kagan here a couple weeks ago, and the reason we have him on is because I loved watching him do his stuff. Especially Kagan, I would love for you to pull up some of that volume work that you were talking about on that show, because it is something I had never seen before, and I was super fascinated by it. I want to learn
absolutely.
Yeah, no, we'll go over that in a second here. So this is kind of my day trading chart right now. So it's a little messy. I'll get rid of some of the lines on here. But really, you're paying attention to these boxes at the moment. Okay, so this is kind of your mid-range. These were both based on math, essentially. So they were just averages of price over the prior action leading up to this small range that we're in. And so you can see you got a nice swing failure pattern up here of the highs. So you can box that off with like a daily level of resistance, and then you can come back down to here, which is just going to be your support. Now, one of the levels I actually gave on that show, and after the show, we always go live on Thursdays as well, like a public one, was 20,688.50. So this was actually the prior year's yearly pivot that was untapped. So this became a really big mathematical target, just because there's only been one in the history of Bitcoin that hadn't been tapped, I believe. And so it was one of those things where we knew that if we broke the lows of the range, our initial target was about 25,100 coming into the lows for May 13th. I think it came in May 12th at 25,222 on Bybit. But we knew if that level was not support on the way back down after the back test of that 32K range, that more than likely we were heading towards, anywhere from, 20K all the way down to, 15. It doesn't, it's a really wide zone. But in terms of the volume, what I was discussing was, if you were to pay attention to, let's get off the 1 hour and go to the daily. If you were to pay attention to what we did back here, there's really not much over here, So if you were to take a look in, let's just turn on like VPVR or something. We'll just do it like this. We'll just do it with a fixed range, and we'll just go from here over. What you'll see is there's not a lot of volume here. So you can see right here that you've got a nice shelf, but you don't have a lot of volume up here. So a lot of times these can be looked at as inefficiencies in the market, and you'll see the market then range inside of that area to fill that volume profile out more. So it could take time. We could spend, 6, 7, 8 weeks going sideways here, maybe even longer. The longer it goes sideways here, typically you would perceive as better for price, right? That's what you'd like to see in this. Now, in terms of the volume profile that you guys might be interested in is, I track everything based on a time basis and a market structure basis. because both are important. And the reason you need time is that you have to take variables out of it and include, it has to be objective. It can't be subjective all the time. Let me get rid of some of these levels. That way everything is cleaned up before we muddy this chart up any more than it already is. There we go. And we'll go ahead and get rid of the MPOCs as well. All right, so fairly clean chart. So starting with just market structure, you can see these are going to be the most important ranges here. And then you could go all the way back into the June, July, right here, the June bottom. Okay, so this is going to be the area I was just speaking about, where if you were to extend this over, you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. And so what you got up here on this back test of this old range, which was basically a perfect back test after you came down and landed in it, came up, see how you had to sell off here, we just talked about, little bull trap before moving up. But right here, so what you guys are looking for is order flow, and order flow is pretty unique. Let's go to here. ExoCharts is what we prefer to use. I use ATAS as well. So this is just a software that's going to tell you where people are at real time. And so instead of working off of like a lagging indicator, like the RSI, this is actually a leading indicator because you're reading the order flow as it's coming in. And so what you're actually looking at is this little line right here is actually the cumulative volume delta. And this is your VWAP, okay? And so the VWAP is just an average. It's not meant to be support or resistance. It's just a mean reversion tool based on the average of price multiplied by volume, right? So what I do here is this chart is called a volume chart. And so this is telling me every time $5 million enters the market. I measure that by time then. I want to see how fast are we getting those candles. The faster we get them, like we're into the VWAP right now, and you can see that this is the average. So this is where a lot of traders are going to be looking to take profits on shorts. So there will be market longing into this area. And it's up to you to determine if these people are actually generating new buyers for strength, or if they are just taking profits and this is just part of the process on the way down. So as of right now, coming into it, you can see that you've had one candle come in 25 seconds, which is relatively fast, then 1 minute, and now it's starting to slow down. But you're not really seeing the delta shift just yet to show that you've got buying imbalances, new buyers coming into the market to really push this up. You've got some coming in here, but for the most part, you've got open interest coming off of there. So to me, I would wait for more data before I would take an entry on this. This doesn't look like a place that I'd want to involve myself necessarily. That is kind of the crux of trading there. Now, will this help you on the high time frames? Actually, no. This is really more for day trading and finding entries. You still have to do the homework of coming in here and identifying the levels. And this was the range I was speaking about earlier. So you can see how wide it really is when you look at the standard deviation of volume. So you can see that we are rejecting from the point of control. So unless this level is really regained, now that it's shifted up even, you do have a high volume node here. Again, 20,688.50 going to be a super important level to hang on to. Otherwise, I would expect to see a dip back to the lows of the range. And I would look at this as an opportunity initially, because I would expect us to put in a range after an expansion like that. It makes no sense to just get the next leg down, but that could certainly happen. And the best trades are going to come from down here because they have the least risk and you have the best stop loss placement at that point. So for me, is this a no trade zone? Yes. Now, if you're an investor and you think accumulating right now is best, then you don't care about these intraday moves. You're just trying to get a decent average and you're just buying on the way down. So it's a little different philosophy and a little different approach, I guess.
Yeah. I think this is super cool. Again,
Yeah,
I told you guys I was looking at his stuff when he was doing on the show, because you guys know I've been talking about volume. Volume is one of my favorite indicators to watch the price action and try to make some trades based off of it. But of course, I've talked about this before with on office hours over there in Club DeFi with some people. Volume, it communicates a lot. Sometimes volume communicates reversals. Sometimes volume communicates continuation. And so you got to look at a lot of different things that say that. But when I saw Kagan do this here a couple of weeks ago, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the solution right there. Yeah. That chart he was showing, it doesn't just tell you volume's coming to space. It tells you the significance of that volume to give you a sooner reaction. Because again, when you're looking hindsight's 20/20. I can always go back on the chart and say, all right, well, look at that volume. Look at the price did. That was continuation volume. Or, oh, look at that volume right there. See the high volume? That was a reversal. But I can only do that with hindsight. This, what he's using, I want to learn more about, because I'm like, you can see almost in the moment what kind of volume that is actually communicating. And so, Kagan, I know we're running short here, but very much want to get you back on the show. Yeah. Kagan actually told me even off air he was gonna talk with me, and we can have some one-on-one sessions. So I'm excited to up my knowledge.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
that is awesome. Kagan, you are clearly a genius, and we all are like, you're so smart. We must learn from you.
I don't know about that. I was just fortunate enough that I got introduced to Volume Profile in 2019 when it became a trading view tool. So I've been using this for 3 years.
I've been using Volume Profile ever since it was I remember when it was introduced, but the last tool you were using there, I've never used it.
I've never seen that before.
I've never seen it before either.
I love it.
I know, I do too. I've used VPVR and Volume Profile, Visible Range, Volume Profile of Fixed Range or whatever.
Yeah.
That we've used that plenty of times. We talk about that all the time, but everything else you're discussing there, very interesting stuff. Guys, you're definitely going to have to go and follow him on his channels. I believe we have your YouTube and your Twitter in the description box down below. Everybody, make sure you go and follow Kagan.
Yes.
Buddy, are there any final thoughts before we wrap it out here? We're about to jump into our next segment, so we're going to have to go, but any final thoughts?
I just wanted to say thank you guys. I love the show. This is something that like I said, I've been watching your show since I got into crypto almost, so it's kind of cool to be a guest on it. Yeah, very awesome. I love what you guys are doing, so keep it up. And if you guys are trading, trade safe. Don't diddle in the middle is what I always say. Wait for the right opportunity.
Come on.
I like that. That's really good advice. Well, thank you so very much, Kagan, for coming on, and it's a pleasure to have you, and really awesome to have an old fan of the show coming on. Thank you so very much, my friend. That is amazing. Well, let's go ahead and jump into some super chats, and then we will jump into our discussion.
Let's see here. We got a couple different ones. We had some from yesterday. I'm going to read them. I don't know if we're going to answer them, but I want to acknowledge them because Bobo, the crypto hobo, who's been a Jebbi Padawan now for 6 months, just talking about. I wasn't here for the show, so I don't even know what he's referring to. But the difference between a conspiracy and the truth is 12. I'm assuming this is months. This is MLS. Yeah. Nico Wild also said, if you change your mind, let me know. I can lend an imposter once beta is live. So.
Yeah, yesterday they were both talking about those things. So
that's fun. All right, so something we had today. Jason Lange, I think it's Lange. Someone said in chat earlier they missed the days of Tim butchering names. You guys got to give me some good names to butcher.
I feel like those days are still now.
They're not as frequent. They're
not as frequent.
The names aren't as challenging. I've been upping my my word usage. All right, here we go. Literally the best and most transparent crypto show I have found yet, and that's what you get when you keep Christ at the core.
Amen.
Thank you guys for the outstanding content every day, and God bless. Thank you so much, Jason. Let's see, what else do we have? Nico Wild again. He said, I'm going to accept Bitcoin for what I think is worth for what I think it's worth at my business. It's worth $100K to me, irrespective of whatever the trivial amount of Bitcoin happens to be going on in the owned markets we have today. What if we all did that?
Well, you would probably see the price of Bitcoin go up quite a bit if you did that.
Absolutely.
Businesses would also probably have a hard time at keeping their operating income where it needs to be and maintaining cash flow.
And the other thing is, Nico, somebody has to be the first. Why not you? Why not us? Why not, to get that train going to where everyone does it? Well, somebody has to be the one that gets it going.
That's right.
And the good news is there are companies already out there that accept Bitcoin for everything they do.
So then could I buy something that's worth $100,000 for $10,000 now?
Maybe that's what he's saying.
That's a good deal.
Yeah. That is a good deal.
Another one from Nico. He said, then Bitcoin seems it wouldn't just be a store of value leached from by liquidity pools. Then it would be assigned additional value like NFTs do already.
That is interesting. You're going to have to find some very interesting market forces to be able to get that to go there. But hey, if you're able to do that in your business and that's what you want to do, then by all means, you do that if you're able to maintain your cash flow and everything with that methodology here.
I'm just gonna say I'm reading this. I am not gonna read it out loud. Troublesome Creek, though. Thank you so much for the donation. If you guys want to read the super chat, you're more
the
than
number
welcome
there
to.
Is the first 5 digits of pi.
Great.
Yeah.
The rest of it's what concerns me.
Yeah. No. That's. Yeah, okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on here. Guys, we got some great news coming out of the SEC's chair, Gary Gensler, because he just affirmed Bitcoin's commodity status. Gensler said he saw many crypto assets having attributes of a security, adding that Bitcoin is the only crypto he was comfortable publicly labeling as a commodity. Speaking to Jim Cramer, yes, that Jim Cramer, on CNBC's Squawk Box on Monday, the SEC chair said that while many crypto financial assets have the key attribute of a security, Bitcoin is the only one that he was comfortable publicly labeling as a commodity. Take notice of that word only. It's very exclusionary, even to Ethereum. Some like Bitcoin, and that's the only one I'm going to say because I'm not going to talk about any one of these tokens, but my predecessors and others have said they're a commodity, and the vast majority of the world would agree with him. The interesting thing here is that he says only Bitcoin. He's not even comfortable coming out and publicly stating that Ethereum is not a security and that Ethereum is a commodity, which is a very interesting stance. In fact, if we jump over here, we have swankyfinance.eth over here saying, any thoughts on why Gensler didn't mention Ethereum as a commodity today? And you got Michael Saylor cheering along over here. He says, hashtag Bitcoin is a commodity, which is essential for any Treasury reserve asset. This allows politicians, agencies, governments, and institutions to support Bitcoin as a technology and digital asset to grow the economy and extend property rights and freedom to all. So shout out to the big Bitcoin holder. He's got almost 150,000 Bitcoin, Michael Saylor. We had him on the show. Make sure to go back and watch that interview if you haven't. It was incredible. Essentially, what we're seeing here is that Bitcoin has been confirmed once again that it is a commodity, but we already knew that. What is so important right now? Well, it wasn't just that we confirmed that Bitcoin is a commodity. SEC Chair Gary Gensler proposes one rule book to rule them all, crypto regulation. This is a big deal. And when we say that this is some of the biggest news that Bitcoin has had in months, this right here is what we're talking about. SEC Chairman Gary Gensler has proposed one rule book for the regulation of crypto, the Financial Times reported Friday. He is looking to strike agreements with other financial regulators, including the CFTC, to avoid gaps in the oversight of the crypto sector. He told the publication, I'm talking about one rule book on the exchange. The SEC chief elaborated that the rule should protect investors against fraud, front-running, and manipulation, in addition to providing transparency over the order books. The rule book will apply to all trading regardless of the pair, be it a security token versus security token versus commodity token versus commodity token, Gensler described. The SEC boss revealed that he is working on a memorandum of understanding with his counterparts at the CFTC, which would be a formal deal to ensure the trading in digital assets has adequate safeguards and transparency. He explained that if a commodity token is listed on a platform overseen by the securities regulator, the SEC would send the information over to the CFTC. He opined, by getting that market integrity envelope, one rule book on an exchange will really help the public. If this industry is going to take any path forward, it will build some better trust in these markets. Tim, what would the world look like if the CFTC and the SEC were operating under one guideline for how to regulate cryptocurrency? Could this be the very beginning of the future of crypto regulation?
I have no idea. And I would love to see I love to see. There are some concerns I would have about that. First of all, would the SEC be taking the lead or would the CFTC be taking the lead? Big question there, because I think based on who would take the lead, you'd see a very different outline of what regulation would look like. And hearing it come from Gary Gensler, I don't think you're going to hear Gary advocate for CFTC to take the lead on that. So in all reality, I actually think that could potentially be more of a bearish thing for altcoins, especially with his widespread beliefs that all of those altcoins should be classified as securities, not as commodities, Bitcoin being the lone exception. But of course, it's not an altcoin. So I think there's a little bit, it's too speculative at this point to try to say exactly what that would look like. It's an interesting thought. But again, my concern at this point would be that it would be led by securities, not by the CFTC.
And that is a good point. You could end up seeing a power struggle going on between the CFTC and the Securities and Exchange Commission over who is the actual leading agency here. The issue that you're going to run into is that even if both agencies are operating under one rule book, so that they're not saying, oh, well, it needs to be regulated this way and regulated this way, and then both of them come together in a big old court case, and then they get upset because they don't understand how to regulate everything. It would be better to have it all regulated together under one rule book. The problem is that just because you have one rule book that both agencies follow, both agencies are going to have ideas about how that rule book should be expanded, how it should be edited, how it should be enforced. And because you don't have one central authority, one central entity, one central agency regulating cryptocurrency, then you could very well see a power struggle going on between the CFTC and the SEC. And that's a pretty big concern because that could lead to all kinds of confusion in regulation. And guys, the reason that we care about this is because in the United States, regulation can make or break an industry. When we're talking about I'll give you an example. Solar panels, green energy, regulation, and different ways of giving money to the companies that work in those, things that are given to Tesla. The regulation around these industries are extremely important because if they're regulated in one certain direction, then the industry will grow. If they're regulated in another direction, the industry will shrink or the growth will slow down. That's what you're seeing happen right now with the transition towards green energy. There's heavy regulation being put on fossil fuels and other types of energy like that. And then there's a lot of money that's being poured into the green energy sectors because the governments can kind of push different industries in different directions. So depending on how the regulation around Bitcoin and crypto is set up and the regulatory framework that is set up from there, that's going to have a very large impact on how the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency industry grows. So it is a great thing that Gary Gensler has come out and said that Bitcoin is a commodity. And it is a great thing that we're potentially going to see one rule book coming into play. And that would be the thing that we would have guiding all of the regulation of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. That would provide a ton of regulatory clarity. Instead of trying to ask 13 different agencies how a certain part of the industry is going to be regulated, it would all be in one central place. And in crypto, we're scared of the word centralization. In this case, it actually would be a very good thing because we're not talking about the integrity of a blockchain. And it would potentially lead to lighter regulation on Bitcoin because now we understand it as a commodity once again. But I guess one of the questions that we ought to ask here, Tim, is are we near the beginning or the end of the initial phase of regulation? Have we gotten through the foundational work that needs to be done to start regulating crypto in the appropriate way for this industry? Or has the ground just been broken? Do we still have a lot of room to go before we have the foundation laid?
Actually, I low-key kind of think the answer is middle. In the same way, the price of crypto at the moment. I think we've been, in a bear market now for a little bit, confirmed, here a couple months ago. And I don't think we're close to the end of it, but I don't think we're closer to the beginning. It's really hard to tell when we'll actually transition back to a bull market. It's really hard to tell at this point when we're going to actually fully have that transparent regulation in the crypto space. So I'm going to put it as almost a middle ground of, hey, we know it is coming. It's been around for months. They've been talking about it, but not really making any really key decisions. We're starting to see the decisions be made, but again, I would put that in the middle. And then my hope and my belief is that I think we're going to start seeing some real clarity come out actually later this year, almost the same thing as what, Kagan was talking about, where he kind of sees the bear market ending and the bull market starting, kind of in agreement with stuff we've said here on the show, later this year, early next year, that kind of time frame. I think the same thing. I think you're going to start actually seeing the clarity that we've been looking for late, meaning November, December of 2022, and then early the winter of 2023, potentially even dragging out that far. And it's just going to be more and more and more and more. But what's really cool is that now we're starting to see the clarity on Bitcoin's side. And, something that's really interesting, Jebb, I talked about this a little bit here a couple weeks ago, but when I was in Austin, Texas at Consensus, the former head of the CFTC, the former commissioner, her name, I want to make sure I get her name right, Dawn DeBerry Stump. Maybe it's DeBerry, maybe it's DeBerry. I don't know. If anyone knows how to pronounce that one, there's my butchered name of the day. Dawn DeBerry Stump. She was the CFTC commissioner up until April of this year. And she was sitting in one of the talks, and she was actually commenting that the question isn't that if Bitcoin is a security. That's actually probably been decided for a while. It's just nice to hear Gary Gensler go ahead and come out and officially say that. The question on her mind is if Bitcoin is even a commodity. Should Bitcoin actually be treated as cash? And she was saying what she had been doing research on. She's like, I don't understand at this point. I'm no longer the commissioner, so it's not my decision anymore. But I'm looking at things. What even would we be regulating as a commodity on Bitcoin? Who would we be regulating? How would that actually even come into play? In all reality, Bitcoin, in her opinion, she said, should be treated more like cash. What are your thoughts about that, Jebb?
I think it absolutely should be treated like cash. It was built to be digital cash. It's unfortunate that it's even being looked at as a commodity, but that's kind of the acquiescence that we have to do in this case because we have to have some kind of regulatory oversight around it. And commodity does actually make a good bit of sense for the store of value side of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. It being a commodity makes sense because it is basically a resource, a force of nature with no central authority. Nobody has a central authority over corn. There are people that grow corn, but nobody is like there's no CEO of corn. There's no CEO of iron ore. There's no CEO of aluminum. It's just a thing that you can use. And that's what Bitcoin is. It's just a thing that you can use that we built online and is completely decentralized. So it does actually make sense that it's a commodity. It certainly doesn't make sense that it's a security because if you were to label it as a security, okay, SEC, who's going to write all the disclosures? Who's going to be the one writing $20 million a year worth of disclosures in a 10,000-page document on the disclosures of how Bitcoin is operating? Nobody's going to do that. Who is the billable company to actually subpoena into court and say, hey, you're a security now. You need to start. It makes no sense. You would literally just have to say, hey, you're a security now. Give us disclosures. You don't get an answer because you're talking to no one, and then you ban it. It's like, we're going to ban corn because we wanted it to write us a paper, and it can't do that because it's corn. It would make no sense whatsoever for Bitcoin to be a security. With some of these other cryptocurrencies, it's possible that they could be labeled securities because there are founding organizations that you could potentially bill and say, hey, you need to write disclosures. With Bitcoin, that's impossible, so it's certainly not a security. There's no question about that anymore. Yeah. Whether or not it's cash, though, that is really the way that it should be treated, and if it ever does get regulated as cash, that is going to really open the door for massive, massive growth. Now, the only argument I would have against it being cash is that cash typically doesn't appreciate and depreciate in value. Now, you do have the Forex markets, but a lot of times Forex markets are almost looked at almost like commodities because of the way they're traded, because you're trading for the purpose of appreciation and depreciation of value. Now, they're not actually, I don't think they're actually regulated as commodities, but it would be better if Bitcoin was regulated as cash. The issue is that you're probably never going to see the government do that because then they can't levy capital gains and capital gains taxes on it, and they would lose a lot of their tax revenue coming in from the crypto space. So it'd be difficult to get it regulated as cash, but it'd certainly be better for the space if it did. Absolutely. So what other treatment might Bitcoin get that other coins wouldn't get? Because Bitcoin is probably not going to undergo any SEC investigations. It's probably it's not going to have any SEC investigations into its initial coin offering, as you might be seeing with, for example, XRP, as you might be seeing, for example, one day with maybe Ethereum, maybe some of these other cryptocurrencies that the SEC may say, hey, these are unregulated and unapproved securities offerings, and then they go back to the original companies. But what other treatment could Bitcoin get that other coins might not? Well, I actually had, let me pull it, give me 1 second, don't go to my screen just yet. I had an article explaining the difference between commodities and securities over here. It's actually a Quora explanation here, and I can show it right now. This is pretty interesting. Of course, this is on Quora. It's not a perfect example, but I actually really like the way this is broken down. Let's talk a little bit about the differences between commodities and securities so that we would understand what it would look like if an altcoin, for example, was regulated as a security. By the way, if you have not hit the like button, make sure you do that. This is Aaron Brown posting over on Quora. A commodity in finance is a physical good that is traded as if units are indistinguishable. That means that they are fungible. So non-fungible tokens are non-fungible, so one does not equal the other. Something that's example of non-fungible would be a piece of real estate. The house I just purchased and the building that we're in right now are non-fungible. They are different property. You can't exchange them like you'd exchange $1 for another dollar and switch them, and it's the same thing. So a commodity is a type of physical good that is traded as if units are indistinguishable, i.e. they are fungible. When you trade gold in the financial market, for example, you don't know exactly what gold you are buying or selling, just the purity and the location. Only if someone takes delivery on a contract will specific gold be identified. That's how you're operating when you're buying Bitcoin on exchanges. You don't have specific Bitcoin, you're buying an IOU to the Bitcoin. Now, if you take physical delivery of it by putting it into your own wallet, then that occurs there. That makes commodities different from, say, real estate. When you buy land or buildings, you care which one you get. You can think of a security as a wrapper that can hold any type of asset. Corporate stocks and bonds are securities. The underlying assets they represent are legal claims to cash flows of some operating companies. Commodity futures are securities, for example. They represent claims on commodities. A mortgage-backed security represent claims on the cash flow from a pool of mortgage loans. An example of that would be a REIT or some other kind of amalgamized real estate investment portfolio. What makes it a security is that it can be traded freely and efficiently. If you sell your house, it can take months and mountains of paperwork and a significant fraction of the house value in fees, taxes, and other costs. If you sell a stock, you can do it in a millisecond with no paperwork. Securitization is the process of taking not very liquid assets and packaging them into securities that can be traded easily. These securities can represent interest in commodity, operating businesses, government revenues in the form of bonds, currencies, real estate loans, or anything else. So what's the point here? There's a pretty big difference between commodities and securities, and they're regulated very differently. A security is essentially something that is made up. You typically don't just find a security in nature. You can find a commodity in nature. You find gold in nature. You find corn in nature. You find Bitcoin in nature. It's just out there. It's just something that you can go and extract from the ground, or you can extract from the earth, or you can extract from the universe in some capacity. Securities are literally man-made ownership over, they are man-made fractionalized ownership over something. It's almost like an NFT, for example. It's a man-made fractionalized ownership over Apple. You know, you could say, okay, Apple, it's owned by whoever. It's owned by all of these different people because its ownership was fractionalized through the securities process. When you fractionalize ownership of something, that takes a lot of regulation. That takes a lot of paperwork because all of a sudden, instead of one person owning a company, now you have 47 million people owning a company. And those 47 million people want to know what's going on with that company. So the Securities and Exchange Commission makes sure that they have different disclosures that explain exactly what's going on with this company, exactly how it's being listed on publicly traded exchanges, on public exchanges, etc. So when you have something being treated as a security, there are a ton of disclosures. Michael Saylor on our channel 4 or 5 months ago talked about how his company, MicroStrategy, spends $20 million a year maintaining their mountain of disclosure. So what treatment could Bitcoin get that other coins won't? When you're a commodity, there's much less regulation on that. It's kind of just like, hey, there's corn out there. Go harvest some corn, go sell your corn, and if you trade it on a futures market, then that's a security because you're packaging it into a man-made ownership certificate. But if you're just trading it, then it's just a commodity. Okay, cool, boom. It's not that heavily regulated. Securities are extremely heavily regulated. So if the SEC does come out and say, hey, these altcoins are securities, that is going to be a very big blow to all of them. So, Tim, to that regard, would you say that Bitcoin is safer for consumers than altcoins at the moment since we still don't have regulatory clarity on them?
So you're saying what it is rather than what it should be, correct?
So Bitcoin is a commodity. We know that. The altcoins potentially, Michael Saylor and seemingly Gary Gensler would make the argument that they're all securities. Is it safer to invest in Bitcoin?
It is safer because, again, based off of what it is at this point or what it looks like it's going to be, whether altcoins should be treated as securities or not, if they are going to be, then yes, I think that we're going to see the Bitcoin dominance continue to grow even through a bull market, which is weird because traditionally in bull markets, Bitcoin loses its dominance. But in this next one, it's going to be really interesting to watch as institutions get into the space. It's going to be much more desirable to be investing in a commodity than in a security. Now, but the other side of that, though, the other side of my answer to that is, should we be giving up the fight on altcoins being securities and continue to fight that narrative? It's not done and said and it's over. Gary Gensler has clarified Bitcoin. He specifically kind of left altcoins vague. Should some altcoins be securities? Absolutely. But there are definitely some out there that should not be. And what's really cool, even throwing it back, and those you watched when Charles Hoskinson went before the Committee of Agriculture or whatever, he gave a great talk, a phenomenal talk about cryptocurrency. And for those of you who are saying, like, oh, here goes Charles Hoskinson again, he wasn't there defending Cardano. He was defending cryptocurrency as a whole. He was defending even the Solanas of the world. He was even defending the project he probably disagrees with. He was talking about cryptocurrency as a whole and what it communicates. And his explanation, Jebb, is he talked about how it was the most transparent money we have ever seen. It in and of itself is built to almost regulate itself in the sense of there's so much transparency and clarity of what's happening. We've never seen a money like that before. Even gold, as great as gold is, and people love gold, and I'm not saying you shouldn't invest in gold, but what I'm saying is gold can be hidden. Gold can make transactions that we don't know anything about. It's impossible on maybe the privatized coins. I don't know that much about the privatized coins, but it's impossible with the Bitcoins, with the Ethereums, Cardano, Solana. It's impossible to do a transaction that cannot be found out later.
That's right.
It might be a cheap way. It might be an easy way to do it right now and not have a lot of eyes on you, but if the concept is all things will come into the light, truth will always come into the light. When it comes to cash, when it comes to gold, when it comes to physical objects, no, those don't always come to light. Sometimes those stay dark. Cryptocurrency, literally, you cannot transact anything. Like, look at all the stories we've seen within the last couple of years of criminals using cryptocurrency. And do they get away with it for a couple months, maybe a couple years? Absolutely. But it comes back to bite them in the butt because what they did is you can follow it. You can stay with it. So there's actually an argument to be said. Let's not give up on this just yet and just say, all right, fine, whatever. Bitcoin's a commodity and altcoins are securities. Like, no. Like, there is still room. There is still people who can be educated and can stop that argument from happening where Ethereum, Cardano, Solana, pick your poison, AVAX, whatever altcoin you love that are accomplishing some phenomenal things and are completely transparent. As education continues to grow, Gary Gensler will not get the final say on it. It's not like Gary Gensler is the king of the world and he's just to wave his wand and decide, I deem it a security, therefore it is. There's going to be court cases. We're going to see things like what we just saw happen with XRP happen again and again. And guess what? It's looking like XRP is going to win that lawsuit. It's dragging itself out. It's taking forever. But even if you do not like XRP, you should be rooting for XRP hardcore. Like, we should be binding behind them and saying, hey, do I like XRP? Maybe not, maybe I do, whatever. But I want them to win for the sake of the argument so that we have a standard, we have a principle to continue to fight this narrative that all altcoins are securities. That's just not true. They should be treated at least as commodities, if not as something else.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the big points that we want you guys to take away from this is, number one, during a bear market, if you are concerned about whether or not these altcoins are securities, then consider having a large portion of your valuation in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is clearly not a security, so it's not going to come under the threat that cryptocurrencies like XRP, Solana, and other ones may undergo. Also, on top of that, if you are in the United States, send an email, send snail mail, send a call your lawmakers and say, hey, we want regulation built around cryptocurrency that is built for cryptocurrency. Trying to fit it into the category of commodity or security or even cash makes no sense. It's its own thing, and it needs to be regulated as its own thing. Whether or not Bitcoin is a security because it's man-made, I was talking about the fractionalized ownership certificates, because that's what a stock is something called a certificate of ownership. Bitcoin is not man-made in the regard of its certificates of ownership. It is a man-made thing, but so is steel, for example. And steel is considered something called a secondary commodity because it's not a primary thing that you find in the ground. You don't just find steel in the ground. There's a certain process involving the infusion of carbon that goes into steel. So steel is something that is man-made. You don't just go and find steel. But steel stockpiles are still considered a commodity, even though a man-made process has gone on in regards to that. It's still considered a commodity. The best classification that we have for Bitcoin is not property, it's not security, it's a commodity, and there is an argument that an even better classification would be cash. But disregarding cash, the best argument is a commodity. That being said, commodity regulation was not built around cryptocurrency. It was built in helping with the Department of Agriculture to figure out a way to classify and regulate food. That is not a commodity. That is not a classification that was built for crypto. It needs its own governing regulatory body, its own governing regulatory set of rules, like Gary Gensler is talking about here. And we need to stop this argument about whether it's a CFTC, whether it's under the CFTC or the SEC. It needs to be under its own thing. The Crypto Regulatory Agency, CRA, whatever, make up something. We need something like that, and that can only be created, at least as far as I'm aware, through an act of Congress. So U.S. regulators are going to be looking at more and more ways to regulate Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, but Bitcoin in the long run is the only one that has been formally classed as a commodity. We are going to see cryptocurrencies flourish and thrive around the world, but in doing so, they are going to do much better if they have clear regulation. So our call to action for you is that if you're in the United States, talk to your House of Representatives member, talk to your senator, their office, and say, hey, we need a regulatory agency over Bitcoin and cryptocurrency that regulates them, and get the CFTC and the SEC out of the mix. These two fighting over it is two people fighting over something, and both of them are wrong. We need our own regulatory body over cryptocurrency that is staffed by people from the cryptocurrency industry. Not just a bunch of bureaucrats from Washington, but people that are actually from the cryptocurrency industry, so that we can regulate this thing in a way that, yes, will protect consumers from companies acting in in bad ways, but is also going to help help this industry to thrive and grow. Would you agree with that, Tim?
I actually agree. I completely agree.
Good.
I think were you looking for malicious?
I was looking for malicious. Thank you.
There
I was
we
going
go.
to say malignant, but that's not the word I was looking for.
Yeah, it's
It
not.
was
It's not
malware.
every day that a word trips up. That's my camp. Like, you're
Yeah.
stealing my game. I forget the word.
Well, I'm doing a caffeine fast,
There
and
we
it's
go.
probably
Yeah.
shown up in the last week and a half or so in my speaking speed.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. I am
it's true.
so used to being on caffeine. I haven't had caffeine in like 3 or 4 days.
Well,
it's rough.
I'm picking up the mantle for you. So
Thank you,
yeah.
Tim. I know you had that Celsius this morning. Oh man,
Dude,
I was looking at that like, gosh, I want one.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and transition here because we got a couple minutes here left on the show. Again, if you guys have loved this so much, if you loved getting Kagan, that's Magic Internet Money, on the show, I want him to become a more regular, like once a month type of person. Let us know in chat if you would love to see it. Learn more from him. But you also got to smash that like button. Let us know you love this type of content, and we will keep it coming to you. But it is time. It is Tuesday.
Oh,
For
it is
anyone who
Tuesday.
is new, Every Tuesday, we predict what we think Bitcoin is going to be. And this is just a game. Please do not, this is not financial advice. Do not make investments based off of this. We're not making investments based off of this. This is a game between Smay, Jebb, and myself to predict where Bitcoin will be Friday at 10:55. It's just a little competition. And guess what, guys? I've won 2 times in a row. And we're going to see if I can make it 3. But because I won, it does mean I have to go first. And so I'm going to predict 21,500. I think we've been trading this really boring range. I think we're close to the bottom, and I think it's just going to be a continuation of boringness before a dip to the downside. But I don't think this week is the week that's going to happen, especially with this bullish news coming out on Bitcoin. I don't think we're going to see a massive rally either, though. I think we stay a little boring, a little sideways. So I'm going to say 21.5 is my prediction. Jebb, I think you get the second one.
$21,000.
There we go.
Boom.
He's just
I'm just gonna slide in right there.
Undermining me right there. There we go.
Yep.
Perfect.
That's what I want.
Yep. Smay, wrap it up. What is your prediction? Ooh, muted.
$19,000.
He remains bearish, ladies and gentlemen. He remains a bear. He's
I'm
holding
excited.
out. Eventually, you'll be right. As long as you keep selecting that lowest prediction, when the dip happens again, you will win. I just don't know if it's going to be this week. But let us know in chat who you agree with. I'm
who's gonna
the
win?
highest, 21,500. Jebb is right below me at 21,000 even. And you said 19,000 even or 19.5?
19,000 even.
19,000 even.
Interesting.
Boom.
Boom. Skillet. There you go. Well, we got some super chats to read too before we wrap it out.
We do. We have a couple here. We got one from Tom Wilkes saying, "Good morning, friends. Sadly, I have been forced to pretend to be a grown-up lately."
I feel that.
I love it. And that has caused me to miss CNC, or also known as Coffee and Crypto, more often than not. But hopefully I can go back to being a juvenile senior citizen soon. Cheers. Oh, you gotta love Tom.
Shout out,
Wilkes.
Tom.
I love Tom.
Tom Wilkes. That's
Tom,
hilarious.
are you going to be an appearing on Reels and Reels with old Smanel to do some
man.
fishing?
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have Tom Wilkes on the show. We can go fishing, talk about movies.
Talk movies. All right, Nico Wild again said you can. My profit margin allows for the experiment. So I think he was continuing on his conversation
Got a
earlier.
hell of a
So he's
profit
saying, I
margin.
think he's responding to you, Smay, when he said, "Can you buy something for $100,000 with like a $20,000 worth of Bitcoin right now?" He's saying yes. Vito Mike said, "God bless you guys." Orlando, Florida says hello.
Woo! Shout out to Orlando.
Nico Wild again said, "I just want to see people be incentivized to buy more products with Bitcoin instead of cash. They get a 5x discount this week if they bring Bitcoin." Wow.
Shoot.
Come on
Okay.
now.
Well, there you go.
Eye of the Beholder, who's been a member now as a Jedi Youngling for 11 months. Wow. OG. Said,
right
"Miss
there.
you guys. I've been so busy during your airtime, I haven't been able to tune in. God bless, and may hashtag Bitcoin
BTC
be
be
ever
ever
in your favor."
Speaking of ever in your favor, I just finished. Well, actually, never mind. That's a Hunger Games reference.
What did you think he was talking about?
I for some reason I thought he was referencing the saying "May the Force be with you."
Oh.
But he's
Not
talking about
the
may
same.
the odds be ever in your
Not
favor.
the same.
I was gonna say I just finished Obi-Wan, and I was gonna say that I finished Obi-Wan Kenobi. And
I haven't finished it. I have to watch the last episode.
I just finished it.
No spoilers.
Okay, I was about to.
Oh, we were about to talk about it and spoil it for
Justin,
everybody.
yeah, I got it. Sorry.
Well, I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm gonna give a face that
I
was my
liked it.
reaction. You ready? I'm gonna give my face that was the reaction.
All right.
Nah.
That's
was
good.
my
Last
reaction.
one. Justin Pokerant. So that one I probably butchered that one. But he said, "Would Bitcoin pass for a spot ETF now?"
Should have passed for a spot ETF 5 years ago. So yeah,
would be good.
it should pass at any point. This specific news probably won't change anything because the regulatory community's already seen has already seen Bitcoin as a commodity for a long time now. So that probably wouldn't change a whole lot. But guys, that's all we got time for today. If you enjoyed today's show, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to follow us on all of our social media over at CryptoJebb on Instagram and Twitter, at CryptoJebbOfficial over on TikTok. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in. We got more content coming out this afternoon that you're not going to want to miss out on. Before I go, though, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Oh, I got a real good feeling.